In this video, I'll be talking about how the logic of natural selection was woven together by Darwin and how he came up with the final inferences for figuring out how natural selection worked. So throughout this series of videos, I've been using a framework developed by Ernst Mayr. In this case, it's drawn out by Gregory 2009. It's a combination of 3 ecological observations that Darwin included in the origin of species, 2 genetics observations or observations related to heredity, and then 2 sets of inferences. First, an ecological inference that not all offspring survive, populations are stable, and therefore there must be some sort of struggle for resources. There must be winners and losers. And then in this video, I'll be talking about the second inference and also the final inference. This is where ecology, in the second inference, ecology and genetics comes together, and then in the last inference, all of it gets tied together to figure out how natural selection works. So the second inference, ecology meets genetics, or ecology meets heredity, states that some individuals are more likely to survive and reproduce than others because of their heritable traits. So this is bringing together the struggle for existence and the fact that there are traits that determine how successful you will be in the struggle for existence. So this is ultimately an inference about differential survival and differential reproduction. Why some individuals are more likely to survive, why some individuals produce more offspring. So we'll do this in the context of human skin pigmentation, again using the example of genes that, depending on the alleles you have for various genes, determines how highly pigmented humans are. Now, assuming in a sunny environment, it's more favorable to have darker skin, whereas if you are lightly pigmented, you have a number of problems. First of all, you are depleted in folate. Scientists have learned that melanin is important for the metabolism of folate. So individuals that if you are lightly skinned in a sunny environment, you're not able to generate folate, and so that is going to impact your fitness. You also are more likely to sunburn. You're more likely to have skin cancer. So if you are on the lighter end of the pigmentation spectrum in your population and you live in a sunny environment, you're going to face certain challenges. Lack of folate, sunburn, potentially skin cancer if you live that long. Whereas if you are darkly pigmented, you are able to produce folate through your melanin, and you are protected from sunburn and skin cancer. So individuals on this end might have a harder time producing offspring or producing healthy offspring. They might be more susceptible to early death through skin cancer. Individuals on this end of the spectrum are more likely to leave more offspring because they won't be folate deficient and they won't die early from skin cancer. Now, however, if you live in a cloudy environment like Northern Europe, then it's actually more beneficial to be lightly pigmented. So in a cloudy environment, the skin produces vitamin D, synthesizes vitamin D for us, and the lighter your skin is, the more radiation passes through it and can be involved in the processes for synthesizing vitamin D. So being light-skinned in a relatively cloudy environment, like in northern latitudes, that is beneficial for making efficient use of the available sunlight. Whereas being darkly skinned, your melanin will absorb, being darkly skinned in a cloudy environment in a northern latitude. Being darkly pigmented, your melanin is absorbing the UV radiation instead of letting it pass through into your skin so that it can participate in synthesizing vitamin D. So individuals that are more darkly pigmented can run into vitamin D deficiencies in cloudier environments. So folate, folic acid, vitamin B, is an essential nutrient, and it's actually very important for neural tube development and neurological development. So it is known that this is a metabolically, developmentally very important for humans, and all the evidence points to folate being very important for for part of the story for natural selection on human skin pigmentation. Marr sums this sums this process up as survival in the struggle for existence is not random, but depends in part on the hereditary constitution. That's the heritable phenotypic variation part of it. Depends on the phenotypic variation of the surviving individuals. Individuals that are on one end of the spectrum for a trait are more likely to survive than those on the other. This unequal survival constitutes natural selection. So it's differential survival is natural selection. Differential reproduction. So the term selection is used, going back to Darwin, natural selection. I think filtering is probably a better word. So here's a kind of an example trying to get this across. It's not completely realistic in terms of the genetics, but let's represent our population that varies in skin pigmentation by these circles. Now, in a sunny environment, we can imagine that the environment is filtering for more darkly skinned individuals, individuals that will be able to carry out metabolic processes efficiently, individuals that won't be susceptible to skin cancer. So the environment is going to filter out the lighter skinned individuals over time, and only individuals that are relatively darkly skinned are going to survive, produce healthy offspring, produce many offspring. Now, in a cloudy environment in a northern latitude where there's less sunlight, the environment is going to select for or filter for individuals that are more lightly pigmented. These are individuals that are going to be able to produce vitamin D efficiently. So more lightly skinned individuals are going to move through the filter of the environment. Of course, heterozygotes are going to carry alleles for the darker pigmentation patterns, but then that will allow there to, in the end, be variation maintained in the population. So this constitutes the second inference, the ecology meets genetics inference. Some individuals are more likely to survive because of their heritable traits. Now, the final inference, putting this all together, is that differences in survival and reproduction among individuals aren't random. The differences in survival and reproduction are due to their traits, and those traits, for the traits that are heritable, that's going to determine which individuals pass the most genes on into the future. So differences in survival and reproduction are not random. Differences in survival and reproduction depend on genetics. So some traits in the genes that underlie them are going to be passed on at a higher rate than others. That means these traits are going to be more highly represented in the future, in future generations. Marr puts it better than I can. Over the generations, this process of natural selection, what I prefer filtering, over generations, this process of filtering will lead to continuing gradual change of populations, that is evolution, and to the production of new species. Marr is then extrapolating from the microevolutionary process of changing traits onto the generation of new species. Key here is its generations. Individuals don't evolve. This is a process that takes time. Phenotypic change takes time. Genotypic change takes time.